It's time. Welcome to Jump Off a Dock. I'm DJ. That's Alex. And it's another episode. We're ready to rock.
I am. I certainly am. I'm full of life, you might say.
Ooh, like a child.
And what children aren't full of life? Well, actually, that's probably, shouldn't talk about, that's kind of sad. Children who aren't full of life probably have afflictions. Anyway, what a great way to start this, actually. Very uplifting.
This week we watched Children Full of Life, which follows the life and teaching of Mr. Kanamori, a fourth grade teacher in Japan, in Kanazawa, Japan, to be exact. A nice short 45-minute documentary.
You say nice short. It almost feels like watching these documentaries are a chore for you.
I just mean variety is the spice of life, right? You watch 8 hours of the Beatles one week. You watch 40 minutes of a beautiful Japanese teacher a couple weeks later.
That's true. Breaks up the rhythm. You're right.
Here's my first question for you about this documentary, Children Full of Life. Did you cry while you watched it?
Do you know that... you know me, DJ. I don't show emotions, and no, that's not true. I actually did find myself very often. I hold it back a little bit. I guess I held back the tears a bit, but I don't. But I did feel I was getting what they might call a bit misty. I was starting to. I didn't full out bawl like you do, but I was starting to feel a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it was very sweet. There were very sweet moments, particularly when the children were dealing with the death of grandparents, father, that kind of thing, and to feel the other kids kind of coming together with them. It was tough to, yeah.
It was beautiful, man. I wept like a small school student. I was going to say school girl, but I didn't want to put a gender on it. I wept like these school children in this movie. It was so beautiful. This teacher was just so... I wanted him to be my teacher. And I don't just mean when I was a kid. Like, I want him to teach me now. Yeah. He was a wonderful man.
He really was. And by the way, the crying, did you... You want to have a cry off? I was actually thinking that'd be that's a question for you. I want to see who
you will lose. You hold it in. I let it go.
But the thing is though, it's all bottled up. And there's a difference between. Actually, can you cry on command?
This is why I haven't booked a single audition in 5 years in LA.
I'm trying to get that kind of cry that comes right deep from the soul. Oh, look at that.
Mine always looks like it's verging on laughter. I can feel it.
Well, a lot of crying is. Well, I mean, isn't crying kind of it's the opposing. I feel like there are many things in nature which are opposing the crying and laughing. Will sound the same way that they call an orgasm the little death in French, because an orgasm is not a place where life begins, and yet also the convulsions associated with it are very similar to those at the end of life as well. Anyway, we're talking about Children Full of Life. Let's not digress too far.
Can I tell you something that's pretty personal, but we're friends?
Yeah, and people listening are definitely...
Yeah, we're all friends.
Yeah.
My wife, Madeline, she laughs when she orgasms.
Oh, one of those.
It's the most... to be a comedian and to have one of those. Way to just take everything... Oh, it's not unique. She's one of those. But to be a comedian and have a wife who laughs when she orgasms, I mean, come on, I'm in heaven, and it makes me want to make her orgasm even more. You know what I mean?
That's pretty good. I think it sounds like it's a familiar thing, and not because anything's happened between myself and
familiar thing.
But it's funny you should bring that up because I always feel like when people say, you got to laugh in the bedroom. Sometimes I like it real serious, actually, in the bedroom myself. You know what I mean? Anyway, we're talking about children here. Why are we going this far off? I feel very... and by the way, since we're on the topic of inappropriate things around children, Are we on that topic? I think I just made that topic. There was that moment where he was when he was comforting the child and he kind of got close and kind of almost kissed the side of the child, almost felt like he was nuzzling in the neck and that kind of thing. It was absolutely just a touching moment of like, you know, him comforting a child, and he's the fact that he has children comforting each other, and the fact that they look to him for this kind of leadership going down this emotional road. I mean, you can't get away with that these days.
I know. I was thinking that too the whole time watching it. He did kiss the child on the cheek at one point, and yeah, shoulder rubs, big hugs, and it was all beautiful. It was all above board. Yeah. But yeah, no way that's happening now. But that actually made me sad that it can happen.
Of course.
Yeah, because that's so, you could feel the student welcoming that touch. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we live in a time. It is unfortunate, and I don't know what to do about it, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where we're going with all this. But you know, it's interesting in terms of like teachers. I went on this. I started kind of researching. It's very little about this guy on the web, you know, to try to find more about him. I mean, there was one kind of magazine article written by some guy from the Netherlands. It was like very difficult to read through, and
he's actually a convicted pedophile now. Just kidding. J Dart.
Where are J Dart? Wow, that's a good callback from last week. And also, Jesus, the "Where Are We Now" is terrible for this movie. Where are they now? Where are they now? Sorry.
Yeah.
I read a comment from like a teacher on another website where they posted this documentary, and one person said, I tried teaching 4th grade and used the same tactics and was fired by the Otherness, Michigan public schools. All the children had parents that taught at Michigan State University in East Lansing. I loved teaching, and the kids loved me, and I was hired by people who wanted progressive teachers like me. There was a change of leaders, and I was fired. And then somebody commented on his comment, that is reality. You must be mediocre and stick to a curriculum to keep your job. Despite what you may learn in college, your boss just wants you to lay low.
Whoa.
That's just the way it is these days with everything, isn't it? Huh? You got to lay low these days.
That's just one person or two people's opinion, Joe. I feel like there's still room in this world for beautiful teachers, you know, who want to make an impact on these kids' lives beyond just education. There's got to be.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, but the thing is, it's not a matter of people wanting it. It's a matter of institutions and fear of litigation and a bunch of other things I could say.
Do you know what it really made me think of? Is like there's ample evidence now that kids of every age are just being completely held back because of the pandemic and the online learning. And it just made me realize like the value of a teacher goes so far beyond just, you know, teaching you the periodic table or whatever. It's like that connection, the other lessons within the lessons. And man, these kids are really getting the short end of the stick right now. They're not able to get that in-person, the stuff that's more than just education. That
is true. Actually, that leads me to something I wanted to ask you, which was did you have a favorite teacher you can think of?
I wanted to ask you the exact same thing, Alex.
Yeah, because beat you to it. So
it was a beautiful road to go down to examine that in my own mind, because when I thought about it, I'm like, I did have good teachers, and what a blessing that is to have teachers who give a shit and really want to impart lessons beyond the education. You know, what comes to mind is I had a teacher named Mr. Klein. When I was in 8th grade, I went to a new school. I had gone to the same school from kindergarten to 7th grade, and then my parents split up, and I went to a new school in 8th grade, and I had a really hard time the first month. I came home crying every day, telling my mom I wanted to go back to my old school, and it was tough, you know? And then my first parent-teacher meeting, a few months into the school year when I had adjusted and things were going better, my teacher, Mr. Klein, one of my teachers, told my mom, wow, DJ's just so smart, and it's so rare when somebody's that smart to be cool, and all the other kids like him too. It's just such a pleasure to have him in my class. I wasn't there. He told my mom that, and she told me that's what he said after. And it just like, I remember it still to this day. That was like however many years ago, 20 years ago. And I just remember like, wow, Mr. Klein said I was cool. You know, he didn't have to say that. And he was great in class too. Like, he was such a great teacher, but I just remember, and it made my mom feel good because she was so worried about me coming through the divorce and going to this new school. So for her to hear my teacher say that not only was I doing well in school, but really cool kid and all the other kids liked me. So that, putting my mom at ease, making me feel good. Shout out to Mr. Klein. That was a really cool thing for him to do.
Mr. Klein, huh? That's really sweet. Although I do suspect that that's a story about how a teacher thought you were really cool. It's real big ups to him, but this is also a story about how you're such a cool and smart kid, isn't it?
I mean, maybe I wasn't, and he was just doing that to put my mom at ease. So the point is, he said it, whether or not it was true.
Oh, so, right. There you go.
You know what I mean?
That is a good point.
But no, you're right. I was pretty cool.
Oh, God help us all. It's funny. I have I don't have that. You say you have teachers. I mean, you pointed out one specific one, but you had teachers that were really good. I don't think I had teachers. I think there's one teacher I thought was actually pretty cool. She was had a good attitude. Funny enough, my drama teacher was made me feel like, hey, you know what? I have some value. I can actually be entertaining. I've had two different drama teachers in high school where one was just clearly was not a fan of my style. And made it clear. And the other one, this one, good old Mrs. Ferguson, Sue Ferguson, she was cool. She's cool. She just had a good attitude, good sense of humor, and just appreciated the fact that I'm a bit of a goof. And there's that, and then also a writing teacher made me feel good about my writing. But that's pretty much in terms of like emotional stuff.
I had a teacher named Mr. Bellissimo who unfortunately passed away last year, and
whenever you say his name, I think you should remember him by going whenever you say his name,
Bellissimo. He would like that. He was the most jovial, kind man. He taught me science classes. I had him for chemistry, and those were my weakest areas. But I tried to bring good vibes to the class. He was all good vibes. I had buddies of mine who became even better friends with him than I did. They went on camping trips with him when they graduated. He always told us he invented the cow condom. And so he made all this money off that, but it was a way for them to inseminate cows without having to. Anyway, I've tried looking it up and I haven't found his name attached to any of this technology, so I don't know if he was just pulling our leg, but I've always remembered Mr. Bellissimo as being the inventor of the cow condom. But rest in peace, because that's another guy who really, you talk about a guy who loved science and was excited to teach it. That's important when the teachers actually give a shit. And as a student, you're like, oh, they like this. Maybe I should like it too.
Yeah. It's funny actually. I had science teachers that liked science, but none of them stood out as ones that I really I remember them, but I don't think wow, that was stood out amazing. But I want to actually throw it the other way, where those maybe a moment where it wasn't as positive. When he called out the kid for just fooling around, talking too much when they were building their rafts or something like that. Remember that one? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In every way did I relate to that kid. First of all, I looked a little like that kid. I actually looked slightly Japanese when I was younger, but no, that's not appropriate. But no, I actually looked a little like him, and I also looked a little like the way he looked when I was being given a talking to. I was pretty sensitive, and it really reminded me of the fact that I did also. My report cards from very young was mostly bright kid. Talks too much in class, and and so I kind of felt for him because I was like, I just trying to have a fun time. Can't we have fun and work at the same time? Why does it have to just work? There's one thing I just wanted to say. You might have a similar kind of story, but I think it was about 5th grade, something like that. I remember I was so bad that there was a guy next to me who I liked joking around with, and we were practically in the front of the class too. I think maybe I was put in the front of the class for obvious reasons. But he had a silent laugh, so I'd always throw him a joke with him, and he's a good laugher. He'd always laugh, but he would just, and I'd be like to the office every day. I'd be sent to the office until they finally moved me to another class. Did
he actually have a silent laugh, or was he just more tactful than you?
That kind of thing. And
the shoulders still let you know that it's real.
Yeah. He was really. The idea, it was a curse for me, but it was maybe a blessing for my education because they moved me to a class where I had to behave. I didn't know anybody.
That scene when he was being admonished by Mr. Nakamura, is that his name? Mr. Nakamura, right? Or Kanamori. Mr. Kanamori, and then Kanamori was listening to his classmates stand up for him for why he should still be able to sail the raft. That was so beautiful, watching the classmates stand up for him, because it was clearly hard for him too, standing up for authority, especially in the Japanese culture, right? Like to stand up to authority like that. But he's like just pressing forward. He's like, no, what he did has nothing to do with the raft. You shouldn't take that away from him for what he did. And not like making eye contact. And then I loved Mr. Kanamori's face while he was listening. He just had his eyes up in the air, and then finally he was like, "You're right." Like to validate that.
I know.
Man, that was powerful.
Yeah, that was very
so
good.
Beautiful.
That was very good. And the kid actually was pretty impressive too. He was pretty brave, and he was kind of a bit of a leader in that class. That one kid who kept on sticking up for and having the idea to help the other child deal with emotionally with the death of her father, I think it was, and that kid was pretty impressive too. And it's and it was really great, wasn't it, to see how he validated those kids and made them feel like they're worth being listened to. Who knew that kids are worth being listened to?
I think that's such a great point, because Madge and I were talking about it after we watched this movie. Like, I feel like North American culture infantilizes kids for way longer. This isn't my thought, actually. Madge said this, and I agree with it. Like, a lot of cultures, they experience the hardships of life. They're not shielded from it at a young age, and sure, they may grow up quicker, but that's probably for the best. And the idea of like listening to kids and talking about grief and these things with these young kids, fourth graders, like I couldn't see that happening in a Canadian or American school. Like, yeah,
I mean, it's a bit of that Disneyfication of dealing with emotions and things like that, I guess. But then again, I mean, this, some of the things I was reading about him is that he's coming also from a culture. They talked about how after World War I, the Japanese had started to develop attitudes towards education that were taken from things like samurai culture and things like that. So that's the whole point of what makes him. And then what happened was, through World War II, there were some people, like after World War II, there were people who were trying to be more independent in their thinking and veering away from that. And he's kind of from that school. But a lot of times that was pushed down. They didn't want that. They wanted to maintain an attitude and a society where you held your emotions. And there were a lot of kids that there was a lot of suicides in that as a result of that. So he was in fact rebelling against the typical educational culture in Japan at the time, probably previous to that. So it's in a way it's the opposite. It was almost like the kids weren't allowed to express their emotions. They were supposed to hold it in. They're supposed to show a kind of a brave face and all that sort of thing. So, he's a good guy all around.
When I think her name was Mifuyu, the young girl whose dad had passed away, but she didn't express it until the other kid came back from a family member. I think his grandma passed away. So she had been holding on to this grief for so long, and then she finally let it go when he spoke about the death in his family. Watching a kid just talk about that, I mean, I wept there too. Like, watching kids, because it's so raw, you know what I mean? We become kind of inured to death as we get older, because we realize it's just a part of life. But like, for that to be your first experience with death and lose your dad or your grandma, whoever, like watching a kid process that in real time was like, honestly, man, it was like a gut punch. I was watching it like,
I know it was a lot.
Here's my question to you. Did you ever cry in class? Was there ever a time when you cried?
Business. What do I look like to you? Cry in class. I don't think I have any distinct memory of so like I'm trying to think. I mean, I almost feel like this is not something I can answer off the top of my head. I don't think I have that. I mean, if I did, it would. Of course you did, but was it? I mean,
one time this girl who sat behind me, Maria, who was also cute and I liked her. But I was stretching, had my arms in the air and I was stretching. I knew that I'd have a lot of sweat when I put my arms up.
Yeah,
but anyway, I was stretching like that with my arms over my head, and she sat behind me and she pulled my arms back.
Oh.
And like both of my shoulders like hurt so bad.
Brutal.
And I was embarrassed because I liked her and she was a girl and she made me cry, but I cried so hard because it hurt so bad. But yeah, I remember that vividly. I was 8th grade. I wasn't like 9 years old or something. I was, I think Mr. Klein called my parents after that and said he's not as cool as I thought.
I mean, dear Lord, just thinking about it, your armpits are crying. I think that the kid though that kid must have felt kind of bad, unless she could be evil. I don't know, but she probably felt.
I don't know if she felt bad, to be honest with you.
Oh, then she's a piece of shit. But I remember things like that. I remember in I think it was 8th grade too, where I was like kind of like playfully teasing a girl. And then, like, I guess I went one step too far, and then, like, she started crying, and I felt like garbage. Like, I felt like because she was like she was just sweet, innocent kind of. I didn't think I meant to be that harsh about it. It wasn't like I was bullying or anything like that. But whatever I did, it was like maybe just pushed one little button or something, and I just felt like a garbage monster of a man. And so that's why I think like maybe she felt bad about it. But some people don't have remorse. I mean, I feel some remorse. I do feel like I probably cried. I mean, I was a crier. I'm pretty sure I cried. For me, crying was like, I know that when I was young, very young, I would cry whenever I saw somebody else cry. Mm-hmm. I would like immediately, like it could be a stranger, like a kid, like be in a mall, and if I was, just up around, was up to around 6 years old or something like that, I would just start. So I was really at a young age, I was an empath. Before I knew that was a word.
And then you put walls up.
Sure, that's what you do when you're sensitive. You can't take it so much. This life of ours, it's too much to take. we can't all be, feel the. I'm sure you have a great support system, DJ, because I can't feel like you feel.
I'm a sensitive dude too. I put walls up and I'm trying to take them down. Trying to let it in.
Really?
Trying to feel
well, if
it
you're
all.
taking down the walls, let me know when I don't want to be around for that. I hate it brings up a lot of dust, and I don't need to be.
When they were making fun of the kid who smelled bad in the class, and then Mr. Kanamori was like not letting people like off the hook because nobody was owning up to it.
Yeah, don't you like?
Yeah,
you can get away with your fancy words. Yeah, I remember that.
And then so finally people started admitting, I wasn't nice, and
that was
it really. I feel like this might be a pretty universal experience, but it brought me back because I had one kid in particular I can remember who didn't smell good in my class, and we made fun of him, and I feel really bad, and a part of me wonders like. Because it's hard to like bring that up as a teacher without embarrassing the kid more.
Yes.
Who smells bad. So like I don't know how Mr. Kanamori brought that up, but a part of me like almost feels like maybe my teacher should have stepped up because it's clear that bullying was happening.
Yeah.
Maybe the teacher should have said something. I don't know how to do it, like I said, without shining a spotlight even further on the kid who doesn't smell so great. But
you're right.
Boy, do I feel remorse for that.
How do you do it? How do you say?
Did you have a smelly kid?
Yeah, I mean, that is something I'm aware of, is that I wasn't a bully necessarily, but I was also, like, sometimes maybe I'd play along and laugh along a little. I don't think I'd do it directly to people, but then again, yeah, I mean, you could stand up for somebody a little bit more or whatever. People are, like, kids are so useless when it comes to that most of the time. They're not standing up for anybody, but you're right.
Yeah.
How do you bring it up? I see how all of you are bullying Stinky over there. That's not very nice what you're doing. The poor guy really smells. We all know that, but it doesn't mean that you can. Not really.
Stinky, come here. Not that close. 5 feet away. Now, everybody, apologize to Stinky.
Dear God. What a terrible teacher.
And meanwhile, Stinky's like, I didn't even know I stunk. The kids were pretty nice, actually. The teacher's like, okay, Stinky, you got to know you smell, buddy. Come on, let's be realistic.
Okay. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give Stinky ideas for what to do. What do you got, Stephen? Deodorant. That's a good start. Okay, what else we got?
I almost feel like this is too powerful for deodorant. Stinky, you use deodorant now? Yeah, I knew he does. There's got to be another answer. I think this might actually be a health thing, guys.
Thank you, Cynthia's diet. Diet? Have you tried changing your diet? Oh, my God. This is, I mean, in some ways it's effective and maybe useful, but certainly not sensitive.
No, but that's what made Mr. Kanamori so great, is he was able to do it in a tactful way that made all the other kids have more empathy. That's beautiful, true. Beautiful man. I loved. Madge was telling me she's Filipino. She used to feel, out of place when she would bring lunch in that was from home and her mom had made it because it would smell like foreign food. Yes. And, I eat all that food now because she makes it and it's the most delicious thing in the world. But I remember being young, and if a kid from a different ethnicity brought food in, I would be like, what the hell is that? But it's so much of bullying, or not even necessarily bullying, but like that feeling of otherness does, yes. Especially for kids, just comes from not knowing anything.
Yes.
You only know your little household.
And unfortunately, they also have parents that don't know a damn thing either. I mean, if you're raised by ignoramus, then, it's hard for you to be fully aware. By the way, did you talk a lot in class? I just forgot to ask you that when I told you about how I was kicked out for talking so much.
I did talk a lot, but it was in a very respectful way. I mean, yes. I would act up sometimes, but what I would like to do, and I remember this clearly, is I would have a joke ready, like based on what the teacher was talking about. And so I put my hand up ready with the joke, and if the teacher didn't call on me right away, I didn't want to be the guy making a joke about something she talked about like 3 minutes ago. So I remember that feeling of having my hand up, like her not, taking my hand, like slowly putting my hand down, like I'm losing relevance here, But if she called on me or he called on me and it was the perfect time and I got a big laugh from the teacher and the class, that was the sweet spot. Because then I knew the teacher would want to come back to me like, let's see what DJ had to say here. Like, how's he going to tag this?
Oh, man, you're punching up education. What an asshole, this guy. He's like trying to be the class clown and the teacher's pet at the same time. I hate you.
I wasn't that great at it in high school. I became a bit more of an asshole in high school, but grade school I definitely was a teacher's pet.
All right, that's the high school DJs. That's a DJ I know and like. So by the way, and you mentioned Madge and talking about and she suggested this documentary, right? Mm-hmm. Just made me think, like, so having watched this yourself and she had seen it. This will inform your raising of a child?
Yeah, I don't know if we've even mentioned it on the podcast, but I am having a child soon. The due date is March 5th, so very soon.
I've already offered my congratulations, so to do it on the podcast at this moment would really just be it's a gratuitous. It's unnecessary, but
I know how you feel. I really want to raise an empathetic kid more than anything. Just like a kid who wants people to feel better after they've been in their presence. Like, that's kind of how I try to be in the world. Like, I want people to, but I didn't always necessarily think about that consciously. So I want that to be a conscious thought for my kid. I want them to leave every conversation asking themselves, did I make that person's day better? Did I bring something of value to them? And I think that was probably the thing that Mr. Kanamori imparted the most. Like, don't
empathy.
Empathy and intention.
Yes, and try to make their lives happier. That was a big thing I do appreciate that. And it's nice, the idea of raising a child who's empathetic. It's certainly better than raising a child who's pathetic. That's I mean, that can happen too, and you better to throw the M in front of it.
Yeah, that's why we're gonna name our kid M.
To put he or she puts the M in empathy.
That's right. We're gonna have a tagline and everything on their birth certificate.
God, who wants a tagline on a birth certificate? These are marketing people right here.
Hey, we're in Hollywood, baby. Got to get them started young.
By the way, I wanted to say one thing. This is almost like, I feel like this is like a little a poignant observation is what I might call this. That a little something about the emotional intelligence of this episode. Here's where I wrote this down. Last week, we watched The Rescue, which was about physically rescuing boys from a cave. This week, we watched a documentary about boys and girls being emotionally rescued from the cave of their own minds.
Ooh, that's good. Now, here's my question to you. What are we watching next week? Does this trend continue in some other metaphorical direction?
That's a really good question.
Well, how about I just throw something out there, since we're both realizing at this moment we forgot to discuss what we're watching next week.
Oh, dear
So
God.
do you want to watch the Gordon Ramsay documentary? Or not
Yeah,
Gordon Ramsay. Anthony Bourdain.
So insulting. Yeah, one of those famous chefs.
Oh my God. I feel like I should go find the grave of Anthony Bourdain and personally apologize to him for that.
Yeah,
comparison.
I think that's appropriate. And what's the name of that one?
I think it's called Roadrunner.
Yeah, I think you're right. Ding, ding, ding. That's correct, DJ.
You want to watch that? He went to Asia a lot, so I think the thread still continues.
Okay, that's good. I like that. Yeah, let's check that out.
Okay. Next week on Jump Off a Dock, we'll be watching Roadrunner about Anthony Bourdain. Not
Bourdain.
Gordon Ramsay.
No.
And, okay, well, that was another episode. We explored our emotions a little bit there, Alex. You let me in a little bit, and I appreciate that.
Oh, I didn't feel like I did, but I'm glad that you felt that way.
Thanks for watching, guys. I'm DJ.
I'm Alex over here. We'll catch you the next time.